Good afternoon, everybody. We will begin the webinar. May I invite now Shimil sir to begin the webinar. Shimil and Regina ma'am, both of them will be the MCs for this webinar. I invite Regina ma'am to begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Reverend Father Dionysius Voss SJ, Provincial of Karnataka Jesuit Province, and the Samagra team headed by Reverend Father Brian Pereira SJ, I extend a warm welcome to one and all present here to the webinar, Psychovaccine for COVID-19. This webinar is an initiative by Samagra, Karnataka Jesuits Mental Health Care. Samagra is a team of mental health professionals, and during this pandemic time, we are coordinating our activities with the Karnataka Jesuit Province across all of its institutions to offer mental health care and support in the form of mental health activities like this webinar, and mental health support in the form of online counseling for individuals and groups, among various other activities. Let me quickly introduce our resource persons for today's session. Dr. Father Rajeev Michael and Dr. Sister Roshin Kunnel. Dr. Father Rajeev Michael is currently working as a consultant clinical psychologist at St. Joseph's Hospital, Manyummel, and guest faculty in the Department of Psychology at Rajagiri College of Social Sciences. He is also the registrar and psychology faculty at Jyotirbhavan Institute of Theology and Spirituality. Dr. Father Rajeev Michael obtained MPhil and PhD in clinical psychology from NIMHANS, Bangalore. In psychotherapy, his areas of expertise include cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness-based and experiential therapies, third wave therapies, family and couple therapy, EMDR and trauma therapy, and parenting management therapy. He has a number of scientific publications and national and international scientific presentations to his credit, and conducted several workshops and programs for teachers, parents, youth, students, priests and nuns, psychologists and professionals. We extend a very warm welcome to you, Father, and thank you for joining us today. We also have with us Dr. Sister Roshin Kunnel, who is a clinical psychotherapist and MBCT teacher who obtained her doctoral degree in clinical psychology and psychotherapy from the University of Basel, Switzerland. Her psychotherapy specializations include mindfulness-based cognitive therapy for adults and adolescents, mindfulness-based stress reduction therapy for adults and adolescents, cognitive behavioral therapy for adults and families, acceptance and commitment therapy. She has authored a number of international scientific publications and presentations and conducted several training programs, including MBCT training in Europe and India, and workshops for teachers, parents, and students too. We are also very happy to have you with us today, and we are looking forward to the interaction. We welcome you to the webinar, Sister. Dr. Father Rajeev Michael and Dr. Sister Roshin Kunnel, along with a number of eminent associates who are specialized in different fields of psychology, have initiated a mental health support team called CAMS, Care of Minds. They provide psychological care through individual psychotherapy, group therapy programs, transferable skills training, workshops, webinars, psychotherapy training programs, and psychotherapy supervision programs. They aim to address psychological needs of students, individuals, couples, parents, children, youth, and adults. Both our speakers will make their presentation together first, and we'll open the floor for discussions, question and answers after presentations. I request all the participants to keep their audios and videos off during webinar. If you have any questions, kindly post it in the chat box. We'll make note and address it at the end of the session. Without any further delay, let me now invite our resource persons to take over. Over to you, Dr. Father Rajeev Michael and Dr. Sister Roshin Kunnel.
Thank you, Team Samagra Jesuit Fathers of Karnataka and organizers at St. Joseph's College for inviting us for this program. The second wave of COVID-19 is receding, and the government of India is seeking ways to vaccinate all citizens. All of us are also concerned about how to vaccinate our minds in order to prevent mental health issues. Hence, the title of this session is called Psychovaccine for COVID-19. I would mention Father Rajeev to unmute your microphone.
So I also thank the team Samagra and the Jesuit Fathers of Karnataka for this invite and this opportunity to make this presentation. So you can see this picture. What is this child trying to tell her father? It looks like he is stressed with something, and she, in her very cute way, is trying to take him out of that. She's introducing a counter feeling, a counter thinking, and maybe most likely she's also inviting from him a counter action. He's probably going to give a return sweet kiss to her. So these are the times when social media and news portals are full of details of why we should feel that life during this continuing pandemic is very miserable, terrible. Whether personal stressors or the societal, the public struggles that we are going through. We have enough to worry for all waking hours. But we know we can't afford to think and feel all this negative stuff. We could try more helpful ways of countering this stress. Hence, it is important to vaccinate our minds. I think all of us understand the meaning of this term. Vaccinating means preventing harm through protective measures. We are not here to discuss why we should vaccinate our minds, why we should be prepared. That is, I think, clear enough. We will discuss how to vaccinate, and that will be the purpose of these sessions.
So let's start with our own ideas about stress. When do we see something as stressful? Stress, by its classical definition, is when there is a problem and the available resources seem insufficient to meet the challenge. This is more about how the situation is perceived rather than what may be the actual reality. So, on the other hand, the situation may not seem stressful if one feels that there is access to adequate resources for dealing with the problem. Here, resources are seen as outweighing the problem. This includes perception that there is enough capacity or access to enough material or social support to address the situation. Hence, it is not seen as stressful. Sometimes the problem seems too big. This could be about repetitive stress or chronic stress. This may lead to a sense of powerlessness that nothing seems to work, and one might even feel like giving up. Thus, there are three possible scenarios faced with a problem. A person feels like I can manage and don't have any difficulty. At second level, one feels it could cause difficulty for some time, but I can soon recover from that. At third level, that is faced with a repeated or chronic stress, one may feel helpless. We can find all the three levels in the context of COVID-19 pandemic. At first level, it seemed we can manage. At second level, we thought we can surely recover. But at the third level, people feel more fear and uncertainties. What would mean prevention for these three levels of stress during the continuing pandemic?
To answer that, let us start with some very basics about the mind. For vaccinating our minds, we should first specify what constitutes the human mind. To put it simply, mind is what we think and feel, and how it gets manifested in what we say and do. That is our actions. We can observe words and actions, that is the doing part, but we may partially observe expression of emotions. We almost do not see thinking. Now, psychovaccine means vaccinating at the level of behaviors, at the level of feelings, and at the level of thinking. Vaccinating at the level of behavior is easier. However, vaccinating at the level of feeling and thought is more important. It's because behaviors are linked to thoughts and feelings. Here, we will discuss how to vaccinate thinking, feeling, as well as behavior.
Yeah. What makes these two elephants different? The elephant tied with a small rock thinks he's weak and cannot break free. The other elephant thinks that he's strong and invincible. In other words, we have to learn to identify how our words and actions are linked to our thinking. Chitra is feeling the urge to eat sweets now. Let's say that she is a singer and getting ready for a show. She knows eating ice cream now will affect her voice quality, but she's feeling urged to eat now than after the singing event. Her behavior will depend on her ability to manage her feelings. Psychovaccine must be administered for thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. We will begin with behavior, that is the easily observable level of our minds. We shall start with behavior. But before that, let's listen to this guy named Sam Burns. He suffered from the illness progeria. Do you know what is progeria? It is an illness of aging fast. At age 5, you look like 24 years old. At age 10, your body is like 50. And by age 15, you are like an 80-year-old man. If you remember the Hindi film called Pa by Amitabh Bachchan, it is based on this illness. Sam Burns died at the age of 17. He looked a very old man, as you can see in the picture. Before his death, he got the chance to give a TED talk. He talks about how he maintained emotional health, although he knew he had a short life. Let's listen to him.
Yeah, so we shall have a look at the TED Talk briefly. Only the first part is being shown here. I hope you can hear.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Sam, and I just turned 17. So I'm here today to share with you my philosophy for a happy life. So for me, there are 3 aspects to this philosophy. The first aspect to my philosophy is that I'm okay with what I ultimately can't do because there's so much that I can do. Now, people sometimes ask me questions like, isn't it hard living with progeria? Or what daily challenges or progeria do you face? And I'd like to say that even though I have progeria, most of my time is spent thinking about things that have nothing to do with progeria at all. You know, I know what I'm missing out on, but instead, I choose to focus on the activities that I can do through things that I'm passionate about, like scouting or music or comic books or any of my favorite Boston sports teams.
Okay. Just listen to what he's trying to tell. He says, I'm ultimately okay with what I cannot do. This is his philosophy. Because there are so many other things that I can do. And that's why he was able to say, though I have progeria, most of my time is spent thinking about things that have nothing to do with progeria. He's able to put his focus where it should help him. This statement is very relevant for us during this time of pandemic. See, there's so much of uncertainty. There are lots of things that we all have no control over. Even now, things continue like that. But like Sam, we can choose. We have a choice. What is that? We can choose what we want to focus on. So where do we focus? On things that we cannot do or things that we can do.
So, where do our attention go? Attention is the gateway to emotional health. and training our attention is more important for developing emotional health. We all have general bias towards noticing what is negative. We tend to notice what is going wrong than what is going right. But our negative biases can be stronger during a stressful time like the pandemic. Hence, this can lead to more negative emotions. Hence, the first psychovaccine that we propose is a shift of focus. Like Sam Burns, it is possible to shift our attention to all the things that we can do instead of worrying about things that we cannot do. Here in these figures, C refers to our circumstances and I refers to our intentional actions, but contributes to our well-being and happiness. Circumstances are our own intentional actions. According to Soja, an emotionally healthy person attributes to 80% of one's well-being to one's own intentional actions. In other words, such a person feels that one's well-being depends on what I can do rather than what other people and situations can or cannot do. Hence, let's practice shifting our focus to what we can do, how we can respond to situations, and so on. Microphone, Father. Rajeev.
Yeah, yes. So during this pandemic, let us focus on what we can rather than what we cannot. Let's focus on what helps in managing anxiety, managing our life's small contexts. Let's focus on what helps rather than what does not help. There are so many things that we are not able to handle. But let's also focus on what is going right. There are so many things that is going wrong, that is likely to go wrong. But shall we put our focus on what is going right? Let's be mindful that during these stressful times, our minds may have a biased attention to what is going wrong. We could pick more of what is wrong. That happens in stressful times. So, and also what could go wrong. We should brood over what somewhere a new illness starts and there's no treatment. Everyone focuses on that. Okay, is it coming here also? That. So we don't have to do that. So it's important to train our minds to minimize attention to the negative information and shift instead our focus elsewhere. So it's important to learn what Arjuna knew how to do very well, to be focused on the eye of the bird. So this story is familiar. Arjuna is focusing only on the bird, and others must have been distracted about so many things, the tree and people around, etc. Most likely they were distracted because they were also stressed out. So there is this relation between stress and focus. It's like a seesaw. When stress increases, focus decreases. And on the other hand, if you have greater attention, greater focus, stress can automatically come down as well. Hence, attentional training, as a lot of research has shown, can minimize stress. There are so many different ways we can train our attention, train focusing, which is known as selective focusing, etc. A few of them will be discussed during our presentation today. We will discuss a little later some of these techniques.
Yes. The second psychovaccine is called doing happy. Happiness is cultivated by what we choose to do. So let's plan and practice behaviors that cultivate happiness. Here we have a long list. These are different activities for cultivating happiness. Each of us have to develop our own list of happiness boosters and practice them regularly. And that is our second psychovaccine. Remember, one-time big moments of happiness are not sufficient, but frequent and regular activities that cultivate positive emotions is the mark of emotional health. Staying happy is a gift not just to others, but also to yourself.
A third psychovaccine at the level of behavior, we were mentioning to you that we are working on, discussing on behavioral level and thinking level and emotional level psychovaccines. And the third one at the level of behavior is setting up and sticking to routines. This is a thing that all of us know, but we would quickly go through a few important aspects. Structuring the time with doable activities is the simplest way to manage emotional stress. It looks very easy, but this small thing can bring big result. It should include routines of sleep, food, and exercise of mind and body. Besides, like what sister mentioned, happiness boosters. I guess all of us know this, but we will not elaborate on this because we know we will quickly go through it. But practicing is the most important thing. So about sleep, isn't it important to have a regular sleep, especially when we are stressful? Sleep routine is so necessary to minimize the impact of stress. In stressful times, we cannot afford to play around sleep. That doesn't work. Sleep routine includes sleep hygiene practices. We will not discuss in detail. You could look up in Google what is sleep hygiene practices if someone is not very confident, aware of it. It's about fixing waking time, avoiding daytime dosing, and planning, especially planning bedtime routine. We should have set up a bedtime routine and stick to that. This will include dim light, having a dim light before going to bed, relaxing music, closing screens, making brief gratitude diary or a positive visualization about the day or what you enjoy in your life. Relaxing music, a relaxed breathing exercise, all of this can be part of the bedtime routine. Again, it's also very important to have a regular and balanced diet. Managing stress becomes easy by sticking to healthy food, right time, and right quantity. So these three should be taken care of. And exercise, there's no need to emphasize on it. It's very well known, but where we make a mistake is we may not be able to hold a decision to exercise regularly. You may need to overcome the all or nothing attitude, especially when going outdoor is not easy, and sitting inside and practicing exercise seems very boring, and people sometimes go this all or nothing. Only if once the lockdown is over, once we have the chances of going out, then we shall. So that is not the way. We should plan alternatives. This might include indoor physical activities as well as mental relaxation activities. Sometimes intellectual stimulation is also important. Activities for spiritual and motivational energizing is important. Family and social engagement is important. All of us know about this, but practice makes all the difference.
Yeah, let's look at psychovaccine at the level of emotions. Emotions are like waves. Like waves, they come and they go, and they come again and again. But sometimes, look at these smileys. Which one resembles how you are feeling right now? Smileys on the right or on the left? And where would you prefer to be? On the happier side? Surely, we all like to feel positive. But isn't it okay to be sometimes on the right side also? So it is normal to feel very sad or very happy. All emotions are normal. Even negative emotions like sadness and anxiety are normal. However, if one remains stuck longer at an extreme emotion, that is problematic. Emotions are like waves, they come and they go. But sometimes negative emotions make bigger or longer waves. Thus, being continuously sad or anxious is unhealthy. Mental health problems often involve sustained negative emotional state. If so, what is emotional health? It is flexibility. It is the right balance of negative and positive emotions.
So when we say right balance, what are we referring to? What could be a healthy ratio between negative feeling states and positive times in our life, in a day-to-day life? There is this interesting ratio of emotional health, according to Fredrickson and others. A minimum balance of 1:3 is necessary for emotional well-being, which means if you have a negative experience, there must be 3 times more positive experiences in order to have a good balance. So when life brings more stress and uncertainties, which means that we don't have the chance of having many positive experiences automatically, we need to balance it out. We balance out such difficult times by actively trying to engage in more fun times, more enjoyable activities, and so on. So it's a lot on our part. So in order to have more positives, we must learn to cultivate them. It doesn't come just like that. We need to practice it and make it a habit. Emotional health and happiness are not just automatic. As we already mentioned, happiness is a habit that we should learn to cultivate.
Yeah, there is a famous story about Charlie Chaplin. When he said a funny story to an audience, people laughed. He repeated the story again. They managed to laugh again. Then he repeated the story a third time. This time, they all stared at him like, "What's your problem?" Then Charlie Chaplin said, "When I repeated something pleasant for a third time, we are already refusing to enjoy the fun. But why is it that we think again and again about painful events, but very much willing to feel all the pain again and again?" Yes, we tend to stay with sad memories for long, but quickly pass the pleasant memories. That way, our negative emotions have stronger neural connections, and our positive emotions have weak neural connections. To have emotional balance, we need to strengthen the positive neural networks, meaning we go to learn to stay with pleasant memories and experiences sometimes instead of letting them pass quickly. Practice of staying with a pleasant experience is called savoring, and that is another psychovaccine. Savoring can be done through creative imagery. Here we try to re-experience a pleasant event by recalling what one can saw, heard, touched, smelled, and tasted and thought and felt at the moment, and then stay with all these details of the experiences. Remember, the important point here is staying with the pleasant experience. One way to stay with a pleasant experience is by doing a butterfly tapping. For this, like you can hold both hands against your chest and gently tap like the flap of the butterfly. As you tap, bring to mind all the details of the pleasant event or focus on very specific aspect of the pleasant experience. The gentle tapping helps to activate and intensify the experience.
We already discussed about emotions as waves that come and go. But sometimes we may get hijacked by these strong emotions. We could be lost in the strong emotions. To give an example, this picture must bring up a familiar memory to all of you. The famous moment during FIFA World Cup final 2007. You can see here Zinedine Zidane of France and Materazzi of Italy. Let's watch the video of this famous moment of the headbutt.
Materazzi, Zidane, they exchange words, and now this is what everyone will be talking about for Zinedine Zidane. Why, oh why, would he do that in his final international as he gets the red card? And isn't that a shot? Zinedine Zidane walking by the World Cup.
So this is the famous headbutt of Zidane, following which France actually lost the World Cup. Look at the way he is walking out, his shoulders dropped, head down, sad and dejected. Materazzi had said something nasty about his sister, and Zidane lost his cool and hit him head down. The French gallery became completely dead silent. He must be now regretting it terribly. Why is it that I could not think at that time? He knew the headbutt would cost him this red card. Wasn't it so important to focus on winning and ignore everything else, at least that time? But why Is it that he could not think well at that moment? The emotional brain took over, that is what. The amygdala took over and took the decision for him. The clear thinking dorsal area of the brain, we have this dorsal area, right? Amygdala is the inner part. Dorsal area of the brain was closed and was not functioning. Amygdala hijacked the mind and pushed him to hit Matarazzi. He was completely disconnected from the reality of what is more important for him at that moment. So this happens with strong emotions. Strong emotions like anger, anxiety can trigger such rash steps. So can we prevent it? What can we do about that? One way to learn to prevent such situation is a simple method known as grounding. Let's look at what is grounding.
Yeah. So what is grounding? Grounding is a simple method to calm down from difficult emotions like anger and anxiety. In such moments, slow down and connect with your body. Slow your breathing. Slowly press your feet into the floor. Slowly stretch your arms or slowly press your hands together. Then refocus on the world around you. Notice where you are. What are 5 things you can see? What are 3 or 4 things you can hear? Breathe the air. What can you smell? Notice where you are and what you are doing. Touch your knees or the surface beneath you or any object you can reach. Notice what it is. It feels like under your fingers. So notice there are difficult thoughts and feelings appearing. And there is also a world around you that you can see and hear and touch and taste and smell. In short, by grounding, you learn to reconnect the world of 5 senses around you while acknowledging thoughts and feelings. This will not remove your difficult feelings and thoughts, but it will bring them down. It will become manageable. You won't react or take rash steps. You will have enough strength to shift your focus to what is necessary.
So everyone experiences stress at some time, and we don't have to worry if it's a small stress because it's common and it's not a problem also. Sometimes stress can cause physical difficulties, headache, like neck pain, shoulder pain, maybe lump in the throat, back pain, heaviness in the chest, etc. But even that should be seen as fine if it is for a short period and then passes. But what we should be more concerned about is chronic stress. What is chronic stress? It is when stress is continuous and cause persisting difficulties. The pandemic has brought many months of uncertainties, worries, frustrations, and losses. This has caused, or this can cause, chronic stress. So we all need to be smart not to catch chronic stress. Stress is fine, but chronic stress is the problem. Chronic stress is associated with sustained attention to triggers of stress. So when you give continuously your attention to the stressful stuff, there's a chance of gradually moving into chronic stress. Someone may watch alarming news frequently and then go on to think and talk about it and thus develop chronic stress. So someone else may focus excessively on these cues coming from the body for signs of illness like aches and pains or breathing difficulties, and then focusing too much on it might develop panic attack. So the way out is to break the attention being given continuously to stressful stuff by practicing mindfulness, which we will discuss now, and grounding that we already mentioned, by learning to disconnect in one or other way. Okay. Besides these techniques, there is one technique that can work very easily, and they are all part of relaxation training. In chronic stress, one very good method that we can apply is deep breathing. There's a sustained overactivation in stress, that is of the sympathetic nervous system. Practicing of slowing down breathing is a simple and effective way to counter this overactivation. You know, when you are stressed, you cannot breathe slow. So slow breathing and feeling stressed cannot go together. Similarly, relaxed muscles and stressed thoughts cannot go together. So by introducing the antagonistic experience or exercise, you are able to bring down stress. So deep breathing is very simple. Muscle relaxation is another possible method. Deep breathing is familiar technique, but on concern, we should be very clear about the basics. What we should do is breathe in somewhat well, hold the breath for 1 or 2 seconds. You don't have to hold it for long. That can itself become stressful. Then breathe out very slowly. And breathing out means like a leaf falling down slowly. So allowing that slow breathing down is the way relaxation is created in the body and the mind. And then do not hurry after you have breathed down. You don't have to suddenly start the next breath. Give a small pause, 1 second, 2 seconds. Then start breathing again. Breathe in as normally as you can. Fill your lungs, fill your chest, then slowly breathe down. This should be repeated 30 or more times at one go. And this can be done at 3 or 4 times a day if you have time, or at least twice, morning and evening. And that will definitely have an impact on bringing down stress.
Yeah. You remember, we learned about savoring. That is, we learned about staying with pleasant memories. So what should we do with memories of unpleasant events and experiences? We must avoid 2 possible mistakes. First one, avoidance. Sometimes people say, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to go there. I don't want to see this person. The effort to avoid it would only intensify the emotions and further complicate it. Experiential avoidance is often linked to anxiety, OCD, and trauma. The second mistake is rumination. Like what Charlie Chaplin said, sometimes we tend to brood over the negative stuff over and over again. Sometimes it is like a compulsive thing. There is lots of research about rumination and its links to depression, anxiety, eating disorder, etc. So instead of avoidance or rumination, a healthy approach to unpleasant memories is letting in and letting go. We must first let it in without blocking it out. But then we must also let go instead of indulging in rumination. There are many methods to practice letting in and letting go. One method is rain exercise. Put it briefly to imagine thoughts and feelings to come in like the rain and then slowly allow them to flow down.
Letting in and letting go is actually about developing mindfulness. So you must have heard this term mindfulness. What is it? It's just being present in the moment, being present to the moment. It's learning to pay attention to the experiences of the moment or of the surroundings, of the inside, of the thoughts. That's we pay mindful attention to what we see, what we hear, what we touch, etc. And we feel, we focus on probably the breath, which is a very good technique. We could focus on the sensations of the body. We could focus on the thoughts and feelings, but stay where the reality is, that is in the moment. So drinking a coffee can be mindful activity by slowly observing the touch of the glass, the warmth on our lips, the smell, the taste, the feeling of the coffee slowly filling the stomach, filling the mouth and slowly going down. The relishing of this moment can be a mindful activity. There are so many other things that can be done as mindful activities. However, cultivating mindfulness needs training. We can do different daily activities mindfully, but mindfulness is a quality of the mind which can happen only by training. This is usually done by sitting quietly and focusing on the natural breath. You sit and then just focus not on the deep breath or longer breath, but the automatic breath that comes in and goes out. Alternately, we could also focus on a bodily sensation, a part of the body, or a scanning of the body. Usually begin with focusing on the breath, on the breathing. Whenever the mind is diverted to thoughts or external distractions, you can gently bring your attention back and again start focusing on the breath. This bringing back gently and focusing again is an important training. I mentioned initially that stress and focus do in the opposite direction. So training your mind to stay focused, automatically brings down the amount of stress or the threshold where stress can become problematic. So this training is also helps in developing tolerance of feelings and thoughts, emotions, without having to react. So that's what sister was mentioning, letting in and letting go. Building mastery over dealing with sustained and chronic stresses is achieved through such mindful activities. And we were mentioning in the introduction that Sister Roshin has got a training from UK, from the Oxford Center for Mindfulness in my MBCT training, and she's a teacher of mindfulness. We both conduct programs which requires long time. It's periodical. It's done through progressive learning. So we just like to introduce this. We are not training you today, just introducing what is this concept of mindfulness. If we are interested, we could just get into that in more detail later on.
Now let's look at this, the psychovaccine at the level of thoughts. Our minds sometimes work like a spinning machine, spinning our thoughts over and over again. Often such overthinking could be either worrying about what one fears might happen or brooding over something negative that already happened. How should we deal with the negative thoughts that feed on our stress? Look at this picture. You see the man, but who is walking near him? A dog? You can see the tail, right? Yes, it's the dog. The man is thinking about so many things inside his mind. His attention is full of so many things that bother him. On the other hand, the dog is walking beside him and his mind is occupied with what it sees in front of it, the trees, the sun, and so on. So the dog is focused on the ground, on the world around him. He is focused on the experiences of the moment. But the man is going on with his thoughts, worries about future and memories of the past and what bothers him in the present and so on. So it is important to learn to stay focused on the present experiences in order to maintain emotional well-being. Looks like the dog has much better emotional well-being. The reason is that the dog is mindful.
Sometimes there may be a persistent need or an inner voice that goes on criticizing self. There are people who experience repeated self-criticism, a voice that keeps on doing this. If we carefully observe this critical voice, it is probably an echo of someone of our past, our mentors of our childhood. It could be parents, it could be teachers, it could be some older siblings or relatives or other people. However, over time, we have kind of accepted this critical voice and then internalized this voice. It has become now our own voice. So what can we do about such voices? When you find your mind is brewing too many such negative thoughts, it's a good idea to close your face, like you can see, like here, with both hands and in such a way that you don't see anything. And you can put all these thoughts, feelings, the negative stuff into your palm and remain that way for some time. And then gently bring up the two hands so that you can look out into something beautiful. If you have a picture or something, or you can go into the moment with mindfulness. You can return to mindfulness. However, such techniques may not be easy all the time. In stressful times, you are not able to easily come out of this negative thoughts. In such times, we have to also learn to work around the thoughts as inner voices and identify the negative critical voice, maybe give it a name and strengthen our sense of choice to respond the way we want to respond, the way it is useful to respond, rather than just doing the critical voice suggesting us to do, the way it is suggesting us to respond. So we have to gain kind of control or mastery over how to respond to this voice. For example, as you can see in this picture, you could give a smile to the inner critic. Just smile. I know. Here you are. There you are. Again, simply repeating this old stuff. I know what you're saying. I've clearly decided there's no point in responding to you. You're too silly to understand. So that is the meaning of the smile. You could just smile or say those words.
On the other hand, you could also strengthen the self-supportive voice by paying more attention to that and strengthen it. Who is a good friend? Someone who is likely to know us very well and having known so much conveys understanding, caring, and support rather than judgmental and critical. If so, what does it mean to become one's own best friend? Learning to talk to oneself like the real friend. We can learn and cultivate a supportive self-talk, which would validate our reality and boost our confidence. We can start by asking ourselves, what would my friend or a caring person like a grandfather talk about me regarding this? How would he or she sit near me and talk to me? After giving time to elaborate this supportive inner voice, we could also write that down as my self-talk. Giving self-support is another psychovaccine.
Unhooking. Sorry. Unhooking is yet another good technique, very useful one. We are free when our minds are focused and engaged with the moment, with whatever we are doing right now. However, thoughts and feelings come behind our back and hook us, as if hooking us, as it were. When we are hooked, we are not fully engaged with the moment, with the activity of the moment. We might get briefly disconnected. In order to now re-engage, we must know how to unhook from the thoughts and feelings. This is an important psychovaccine, but it is very simple. There are just 3 steps, as you can see on the slide. The first one is to notice that there is this difficult thought or feeling coming to hook me from behind. Second, name the thought or feeling by silently saying, here is irritation, here is worry, like that. Here is a thought that nothing works. There are so many such negative thoughts that come to mind again and again and again. So we can identify them by the same name so that we are able to clearly catch the theme, the thought. And then the third step is to refocus on what we are doing. Thus, we learn to separate self from the negative thoughts. We are able to maintain that distance of ourselves from the thoughts and feelings. For example, the first thing will be notice that here's a difficult thought that's trying to hook me. The second may be, yeah, I know, here comes worry. The third may be that you are deciding, now I'm going to focus on what I would like to do. So unhooking gets easier by repeating this because the worry thought will come again. So repeating this over and over, you develop the capacity to stay free from the negative thoughts and feelings.
Yes, also, one way of unhooking is by placing all the negative thoughts onto something outside us. Like children like to place their thoughts in a small chest or a box and then lock it down. Grown-ups usually benefit from penning down their thoughts in a diary. In balloon exercise, you would first blow in all the disturbing thoughts and feelings into the balloon, and then, like a hydrogen balloon, hold it on a thread and prepare yourself to let go of the thoughts and feelings. And finally, when you are ready, leave the balloon and let it fly into the blue skies. So, hello, are you stuck?
Yeah, are you able to hear me now?
Yeah. Are you
Okay,
okay?
then I'll continue.
Yeah, can we do? Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine. I think there was a problem with the connection.
Okay.
So look at this two smileys here. We may not, there are stresses that come our way. How do we view stress in our life? Often we may not be able to change the stresses that come, that life brings to us. But we can clearly change the way we relate to the stress. Here, these two smileys refer to two job aspirants sitting outside and waiting for an interview. Both find the waiting stressful, but one feels that this feeling of stress is now going to spoil my performance at interview. The other one feels that this stress is going to help me stay focused and make me more energetic at the interview. The stress is the same, but your relationship to the stress can be different, and that makes the outcome different. So we can imagine what could be the outcome. For example, studies have shown that there is a link between stress and heart disease. Two people have a similar heart disease. Both are engaged in stressful jobs, but one feels that now this stress is going to worsen my disease. Yeah. The other one feels that stress is normal and is part of being actively engaged that makes life meaningful. So it's part of my values, life values. Who's likely to live longer? That question seems simple, but years of research has shown that believing stress is good actually makes it helpful rather than harmful. Those who believe that stress is okay and sometimes even helpful were likely to suffer less from a cardiac arrest. So our relationship with stress is going to be the most important, most crucial part. So in this sense, how do you see your stress in life? How do we relate to the stress in our life? Do we focus on the downside of stress, stress as a problem, or the upside of stress, how we can utilize it? Stress is, we can see it in all these different ways. Stress is giving me energy to act, face life's challenges. Stress is helping me to focus. Or you could put it as stress is normal part of life. The other side is stress is seen as a minor problem which is causing discomfort, and the other extreme could be stress is harmful and can be dangerous for me. Where do we, what are the kinds of thoughts that we have against stress? How do we relate to stress is going to be very important.
Yeah. Thus, our psychovaccine line is changing our relationship with the stress. That is, learning to focus on the upside of stress. A medical explanation of the stress reaction in the body is this. Stress means my body is helping me to deal with life's challenges by giving focus, energy to reach out, to seek support, to put together available resources, and so on. We can learn and practice careful utilization of this stress energy.
So this is a moment that has been watched and shared, discussed by all of us recently. The Danish footballer Christian Eriksen returned to life during the Euro Cup, which happened in the last week. This is an apt example of what we are now talking about. Let's watch the moment during the Euro Cup. As you know, he was playing for Denmark and suddenly fell. When he fell, the captain must have felt an intense rush of stress energy. He bent down, you can see, he bent down and quickly sought other people's help and started giving CPR. The referee felt that the stress of deciding, should all these people are waiting, should we continue or should we pause? Can we shift the man out or should we help him in the ground itself? So he felt that stress, but he decided to choose for life. He used that stress energy to decide for life instead of shifting the player from the ground. Choosing for life needed that big energy for him. And everyone else also felt stress, and see, they are praying for his recovery silently. And slowly, Christian Eriksen recovered and was later tagged at the end of 2 hours. He was tagged man of the match when the game was over. Although Denmark did not win the match, it was a big victory for them in front of the world. So, stress energy is a big source or resource for life, especially in difficult times. We must practice focusing on the upside stress, learning to use the energy that stress brings to us.
Yeah. So we could experience the situations and observe how it was, the situation. Till now, we were discussing about what all of us can try and do from our side when there are psychological difficulties. We can use these psychovaccines, but sometimes nothing may work. We can use these psychovaccines, but sometimes all our efforts may not bring any change to the emotional pain. We might need professional help. Here is Deepika Padukone, India's super Bollywood star. She went through depression, but she later discussed openly about her experience of illness in public and also emphasized the need to seek help without feeling ashamed. We shall cultivate the courage and confidence to talk about psychological distress without fear or shame when we need help and support others. When we need really the help of others. Let's remember this: seeking help for mental health needs is a sign of strength.
So this is the final psychovaccine that we are presenting before you. Chronic stress can lead to depression. Sometimes people with depression may not display gloomy face, sadness, crying, etc. The person might be seen as irritable and rude. It's important not to miss the underlying pain and distress. We should not miss the depression because it is our chance to save a life. We may have to try and gently connect to the person and help the person to open up and talk. One most important thing is to help a person talk about the difficult moment. So that can prevent suicide and depression and so on.
Yes. To summarize, we discussed many methods as psychovaccine for well-being, and out of many, there are 8 important things which we discussed to give you some tips to practice it regularly, shifting focus on what we can. Practice happiness boosters, which you have already within you to find out. Sticking to doable routines. Savoring, grounding, deep breathing, practice of mindfulness, letting in and letting go, self-soothing, unhooking, turning stress upside, seeking help and supporting others to seek help.
Additionally, we would like to also bring in the 7 ways to healthy responses to COVID-19 challenges. That is to rest and relax and reflect, reconnect and re-engage, return to healthy daily routine, as we mentioned, is very important. Respond to self and others with kindness. This is a time we should stay together, support each other, reach out to help, and finally, reach out for help. That's how we sign out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening us. Hope you got something. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Rajeev Michael. Thank you, Sister Roshin John. Before we proceed to the Q&A session, dear participants, I would like to request you, I have just posted in the chat box Google Forms feedback form. Kindly fill and send it to us. Now I invite Mr. Shimil to proceed with the Q&A session.
Thank you, Father. After listening to the session, actually, I have a feeling that I successfully vaccinated, psychological vaccinated. I didn't get the actually COVID vaccine, but psychologically I vaccinated, yes. Actually, I received a few questions. If Still, a few more questions are actually I'm receiving. Can I start question, sir?
Yeah.
Question session. Yeah. First question is, what is the difference between unhooking and mindfulness?
Can you repeat the question once again? Sorry.
What is the difference between unhooking? You told that is
Yeah.
the thoughts, how to unhook and all. So what is the difference between unhooking and mindfulness?
I'll start responding. Unhooking, mindfulness is a very broad term. It refers to a lot of things that we can do in terms of becoming mindful, becoming attentive, paying attention to the moment or what is going on. So it's not, it looks so simple. You can say what is mindfulness in just one line, but learning mindfulness and to develop a life of mindfulness involves a lot. Unhooking is a very specific technique. It's not really about mindfulness only. It has a component of mindfulness because you are noticing the thought, noticing the feeling, naming it, and then separating yourself. Mindfulness involves that. You are sitting, you become aware of thoughts and feelings coming in. You notice, you know this is coming in, but you are not engaged, involved with it. You are staying yourself different. That way it is mindfulness. But unhooking is a specific technique, which is more like a cognitive technique to deal with difficult thoughts and feelings. Okay, so that you can stay free from its impact.
Yeah, I would also add a bit with that. When we are is interconnected, but that if we say difference, we cannot say difference because once a person is regularly practicing the mindfulness of thoughts and feelings and emotions and practicing it, this unhooking the cognitive behavioral level, it will help us to reach too fast to where we are hooked with the thoughts and we are stuck with it. And when we are mindfully aware, regularly practicing, it helps us to unhook fast as it is a technique to come out of the stressful things which we are stuck on it.
Okay, thank you. Second question is, can you suggest some daily self-care tips to maintain good mental health? We already discussed, I think.
Yeah. First, we would definitely tell you the breathing exercise. We already mentioned a few of these steps. If you, we said the few steps, small step of breathing for 30 seconds repeating, and this breathing lead us to more way of doing it. To first, we can start with 3 minutes regularly for a few weeks. Then it can increase to 8 minutes, 12 minutes, then half an hour. At least a person who is very much interested to have daily practice once in a day, start with it, but at least minimum twice in a day and making it for a regular basis will definitely help you to be mindful and come out of the stresses.
So all the 10 techniques can be utilized.
Yeah.
On a day-to-day basis, actually.
Yeah. Sometimes some of them may be not everyday practicable, but breathing will help you for every situations to manage. It will be a healthy practice of doing it. And in mindfulness, of course, as I am trained, the mindful body moments are there. We know that we are all used with the yogas. The yogas itself has different versions of westernized method even. It's originated from our country, but they have made it in such a way, even every people in everyday life can manage with this mindful body moments, which when we practice it when we wake up and when we go before we go to bed or when we feel relaxed, if we are used with it even for a few minutes a day, it will help us. If you are making it of your daily routine, it will help you very much.
Clear. Next question is, can you share your experience in adolescent counseling during this pandemic time? And one more question is added that what is the success rate of mindfulness-based therapy in adolescents?
Okay. Yeah. So mindfulness-based practices have have not been systematically used regularly in the clinical setting as a group program in India. It is there in the West. MBCT or other trainings which sister was mentioning about are all regular in the Western context. But if you look for an MBCT training program, the 8-session or 8-day training program, we don't even see one in a year in India. So we don't expect that kind of a data from our part. Okay. However, the Indian mindset is really good for doing mindfulness or accepting mindfulness-based training or psychotherapy. So that way, I think people in general should benefit from it. I think your question is very specific. Are adolescents going to benefit from mindfulness or such sitting meditation practices? Okay, maybe the question comes from skepticism. Can children and adolescents sit like that or focus, etc.? Shall sisters start responding? Would you like to respond?
I would add with the question related to the adolescents for during this pandemic, especially because they were lost their campus life, their teenagers, their peer group learning time, the enjoyable time that made them more stressful. And those who had a little bit of stress that they were not able to manage were increased, and they were addicted to the medias, and that made them more stressful. Also, some of the movies also made adolescents very fearful because they have no space to share with their peer groups and go out. So they were continuously going through the medias to the different programs and applications. So that made them little more stressful. And adolescents, they're more for the sessions during this pandemic.
Someone was opening a site in the internet, and then came a line: "Be peaceful. Make yourself peaceful before you open." Suddenly, it's like, oh, okay, where am I? We are often absent-minded or automatic in so many things that we do. When we open the mobile and then we start checking the WhatsApp, or our mind works in a very automatic way, autopilot way. So mindfulness will bring a lot of difference. You will know what you're doing, why you're doing. Just those half-minute awareness can bring a big difference. So it should be useful for all people. At NIMHANS, I remember some of my neurology colleagues who were working with mindfulness in their children, in the neurology section. Whenever children come, they used to train them in mindfulness. So they used to take it so easily during the early days. So if you get training in mindfulness in the early school days or even later school days, this can become part of life even through adolescence and adulthood. So that could be a good idea to bring mindfulness as a practice.
Also, as we were giving many groups of the adolescents or groups like from the school and the college, some groups they are giving practice, so they benefited better than previously they reported about this mindfulness practice.
Okay, sister. So the mindfulness-based this one therapy will definitely benefit for adolescent also.
Yeah, they will benefit much better.
When it comes to treatment, when someone has a psychological problem and you are applying therapy, it is surely beneficial. We were just skeptical because people's openness to try this method could be different based on our background. That was the concern.
And one more thing, any psychological problems start from the age group of adolescents. So as soon as they recognize or identify, it's good to start with the therapies than to go directly to the medication. So this kind of things will help them because they are cognitively very sharp. So it is easy to improve than to go for medication.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is how to deal with the monotony of having the same routine every day, especially during this time.
We have mentioned about some happiness boosters. So they can, whoever asks or everyone can find out what are their strengths which make them happy, and what are the circumstances at home, what are the sources available. So find out such things and make it creative. Right? That those monotonous can change. Of course, nowadays even the mobile is a thing which makes them happy. So use it in a way, in a healthy manner, which makes them happy. There are things make them happy, curious, learning, things like that. So if there is no other opportunity, even with the devices, we can make use.
Yeah. Thank you, sister. And as you mentioned earlier, because so many students are nowadays into indulging in social media and internet activity, related to that, internet become integral part of our life now. So how to manage with the internet addiction?
These are big questions. That's why also they're also reluctant to answer. Right? They are only their own time to discuss in detail. Addictive behaviors are problematic, but I do believe I'm being too hopeful that this pandemic will pass. Okay, so the problems that we are now facing are part of a passing problem. And as the time passes and these issues we have overcome, the addictive behaviors associated with pandemic would also go. This is my hope. However, for some people, the impact of these behaviors may stay longer than the pandemic. That is when more important interventions will be needed. However, if we already see that there are some people who experience, there must be some people, definitely a small group who are already suffering because of addictive ways of using the internet or mobile or gaming or any of them. Help is available only when we recognize there is a problem. Help is available for all if there is a recognition of the problem. That is the first difficult part. Someone recognizing this is actually a problem. I'm not able to manage. I don't have control. Something else is controlling me. I am not the same as before. I'm not able to shift my mind to something else. This recognition is needed. I think more information dissemination is important regarding what is addictive behavior, especially in the context of internet usage.
Also, I can add a thing which is practically sensible and noticed. The question is about the addiction of the devices. So if the person personally, if they really observe that I am addicted, I have to change myself, that makes better results. And to support them, their supporting group is also aware that we have to do such things in certain healthy way. And if a group support is there for a team of few adolescents or whoever, so a teamwork of the group or individual decision will help them. And we of course give them strategies and criteria how to overcome. But if they have some ideas that we are really into that, there are tips and helps which we can give them. Those who really would wish to.
Yes, sister, it's clear. Sister, can I go for 2 more questions?
Yeah, if your time permits.
Okay, thank you. Next, the question is, what is the difference between multitasking and mindfulness? Whether it can be applied together.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing is you can say. Okay.
Yeah, multitasking means you are able to do different things at a time, right? Focused attention means you are focusing on something and learning to discard the attention being given to the other things. These are 2 skills. We cannot say one is better than the other. These are 2 skills. However, multitasking is not very much associated with improvement of mental health. By doing so many things together doesn't mean that you are, there's a chance that you could lose focus. However, for dealing with emotional distress or stress, focused attention is going to be more helpful. So one simple way to put it is,
automatic.
You could, when you are on a highway, you are fine driving in autopilot mode. If you have a vehicle and you don't have to control it, you can sit. Your mind can wander, whatever you are interested, multiple things can be, means you can respond to all these different things simultaneously, all that is fine. But in a stressful traffic, you might prefer to drive, you might prefer to take control, which needs focus. You cannot be distracted with so many things and drive when it is a lot of traffic or a difficult route. Okay, so stress requires more focus. That is why we need to train ourselves in focused attention. However, multitasking is a good idea. We could continue doing that whenever that helps.
Yeah, there are experiments as well. The multitasking person and the single tasking person's capacity to focus on the quality of the work. So that matters. And for some silly examples, children often listen to the music or watch the TV and eat. So in those cases, it is a multitasking, but which one needs more effort? So that is easily we can handle. But at the same time, eating and studying or listening and studying, listening music and studying. So whether this studying need more attention, learning something seriously, things to focus. So it matters of the attention, and this multitasking does not make help to everyone depending on their intellectual capacity. So it depends. And the quality differs.
Okay, sister. Thank you. It's clear. So the other questions are actually, I think you already answered regarding the stress and coping mechanism and all. So if, so I think can we wind up the session before that? Just conclude. So as we come to know, now it's the end of the webinar. It's a time for me to propose the vote of thanks. So first of all, I thank the Almighty for keeping us safe in a good health in order for us to reach these activities, various activities during this pandemic. And I extend my heartfelt gratitude to esteemed speakers of today for giving the insightful and practical tips to care our mental health. Within short time, actually, they were able to cover the topic in a more comprehensive way. So thank you very much, Dr. Father Rajeev Michael and Dr. Sister Roshin Kunnel for your valuable time and insightful session. And I would like to extend my gratitude towards the Provincial of Karnataka Jesuit, Reverend Dionysius Voss and Reverend Father Jerome Stanges D'Souza, Province of South Asia, and Father Brian, Samagra team head, for the great support and encouragement. And also thank to Father Bala for arranging and organizing this webinar. Thank you all members of Samagra for coordinating this program, and all participants and members of Jesuit communities. Thank you all for this participation.
Thank you once again, Dr. Rajeev Michael, Mr. Roshin, and all the participants. Thank you all.
So let's find it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.